Hai, seperti janji aku, hari ini aku mau bacain buku cerita ini. Di dalam buku cerita ini ada dua cerita. Yang pertama adalah Princess Mirror-Belle, dari depan sampai ke tengah. Lalu di tengah ada Princess Mirror-Belle and the Party Hoppers. Oke, aku mau mulai dari bagian pertama ya. Ada 3 bagian. Yang pertama adalah Dragon Pox. Yang kedua, Ellen's Castle. Yang ketiga, Princess Mirror-Belle and Snow White. Sebetulnya kalau kalian ke toko buku bisa cari yang bentuknya begini. Atau bisa juga cari yang banyak gambarnya. Jadi buku ini juga ada dalam bentuk seperti ini. Tapi aku nggak dapetin di Indonesia. Mungkin kalian bisa cari. Kalau banyak gambarnya gini anak-anak lebih suka ya. Oke, jadi kita mulai dengan cerita yang pertama. Dragon Pox. You've got some new ones on your face, said Ellen's mom. Don't scratch them or you'll make them worse. Ellen was off school with chicken pox. She didn't feel at all ill, but she did feel sorry for herself because she was missing the school outing to the dolphin display. Can you read me a story? She asked Mom. But just then, the front door bell rang. Oke, ini dia kena cacar air Ellennya, kena chicken pox. I'm sorry I can't, or I can't. That's Mrs. Foster Smith come for her piano lesson. Look, here are your library books, and remember, no scratching. She went out of the room. Ellen picked up one of the books. It was full of stories about princesses. She flicked through the pages, looking at the pictures. The princesses were all very beautiful, with swirly-looking clothes and hair down to their waist. None of them had chicken pox. Ellen started to read The Sleeping Beauty, but it was difficult to concentrate. For one thing, her spots were so itchy. For another, Mrs. Foster Smith was thumping away at the fairies' dance on the piano downstairs. The way she played it, it sounded more like the elephant's dance. Ellen decided aku kasih gambarnya dulu ya. Okay, let me show you this. Okay. Ellen decided to have a look at her new spots. There was no mirror in her bedroom, so she put on her right slipper. She had lost her left one and padded into the bathroom. She studied her face in the mirror over the basin. One of the new spots was right in the middle of her nose. The more Ellen looked at it, the itchier it felt. Her hand crept towards it. It's just a little tiny scratch. Wouldn't matter, surely. Her finger was just about to touch the spot when a strange thing happened. Her reflection dodged to one side and said, "Don't scratch or you'll turn into a toad." Ellen didn't reply. She was too surprised. She just stared. "I've never seen such a bad case of dragon pox," said the mirror girl. "It's not dragon pox, it's chicken pox," Ellen found herself saying. "Anyway, yours is just as bad. You're my reflection." "Don't be silly, I'm not you," said the mirror girl. And to prove it, she stuck one hand out of the mirror and the other. And that's the mirror girl. "Come on, help me out," she said, reaching for Ellen's hand. Ellen gave a gentle pull, and the mirror girl climbed out of the mirror, into the basin, and down onto the bathroom floor. "What a funny little room," she said. "It's not that little," said Ellen. This was true. There was room in the bathroom for 3 of the tall pot plants that Mom was so keen on. The mirror girl laughed. "The bathroom in the palace is about 10 times this size," she said. "The palace?" repeated Ellen. "Of course. Where would you expect a princess to live? Are you a princess then? I most certainly am. I'm Princess Mirror-Belle. You really ought to curtsy, but as you're my friend, I'll let you off. But you don't look like a princess, said Ellen. You look just like me. You've got the same pajamas and just one slipper. You've even got a plaster on your finger like me. These are just my dressing up clothes, said Mirror-Belle. In the palace, I usually wear a dress of silver silk, like the moon. She thought for a moment and then added, or one of the golden satin, like the sun. And anyway, my slippers on my left foot and my plasters on my right finger. Yours are the other way round. Ellen didn't see that this made much difference, but she didn't want to get into an argument. So, instead, she asked Mirror-Belle, why have you got the plaster? Did you cut yourself on a bread knife like me? No, of course not, said Mirror-Belle. I was pricked on my finger by a wicked fairy. Aku buat teh hangat dengan kayu manis. Okay, just like the Sleeping Beauty, said Ellen. Did you go to sleep for 100 years too? No, 200, said Mirror-Belle. I only woke up this morning. She gave a huge yawn as if to prove it. Did you put the plaster on before you went to sleep or after you woke up? Asked Ellen. But Mirror-Belle didn't seem to want to answer this question. Instead, she put the plug into the bath and turned on the taps. Hey, what are you doing? Asked Ellen. Getting the cure ready. What do you think? The cure? What cure? The cure for dragon pox, of course. But I haven't got dragon pox. Well, I have, said Mirror-Belle, and I'll tell you how I got it. I was in the palace garden last week playing with my golden ball when... Weren't you still asleep last week? Ellen interrupted. Didn't you say you only woke up this morning? I wish you'd stop asking so many questions. As I was about to say, an enormous dragon flew down and captured me. Luckily, a knight came and rescued me. But when I got back to the palace, I came out in all these spots. My mother, the queen, sent for the doctor, and he said I'd caught dragon pox. Well, my doctor said mine were chicken pox, said Ellen. I suppose you were captured by a chicken, weren't you? Were you? I suppose you were captured by a chicken. I suppose you were captured by a chicken, were you? Said Mirror-Belle. Not quite so exciting, really. Still, I expect the cure just the same. She picked up a bottle of bubble bath and poured nearly all of it into the water. That's far too much, shrieked Ellen, but Mirror-Belle was too busy investigating the cupboard on the wall to answer. Okay, here's the picture. This looks good too, she said, but that's my dad's shaving cream, Ellen said. It's nice and frothy, said Mirror-Belle, squirting some of it into the bath. And this looks just the job, she said, taking the cap off a tube of minty zinc toothpaste which had red and green stripes. Nice colors, said Mirror-Belle, squeezing most of the toothpaste out into the bath. Ellen was a bit shocked at first, but then she giggled. Shall we put some of Luke's hair gel in too? She asked. Ellen's big brother had started getting interested in his appearance recently and was always smoothing bright blue sticky stuff into his hair. Good idea, said Mirror-Belle. Ellen scooped the gel out of the tube and into the bath. That would serve Luke right for all the times he'd hogged the hairdryer. Mirror-Belle poured in a bottle of orange-colored shampoo and eyed the bath water thoughtfully. We still need one more ingredient, she said. I know! She picked up Mom's bottle of Blue Moon perfume and began spraying merrily. Ellen, who had begun to enjoy herself, felt rather alarmed again. Mom only ever put a tiny bit of blue moon behind her ears, but now the bathroom smelled like a flower shop. "Let's get in now," said Mirror-Belle. In another moment, the two of them were up to their chests in bubbles, cream, gel, and toothpaste. "I can feel the cure working already, can't you?" said Mirror-Belle, and flipped some froth at Ellen. Ellen flipped some back, and a blob of toothpaste landed on the spot on Mirror-Belle's nose. Ellen noticed that Mirror-Belle, like herself, had a pale mark round one of her wrist. "We've both got watch strap marks," she said. "Did you lose your watch like I did?" Mirror-Belle looked at her grandly and said, "This mark isn't from a watch." "Oh no, it's from my magic wishing bangle." "A wishing bangle? Can you wish for anything you want?" "Naturally," said Mirror-Belle, "and for things that other people don't want." "Such as?" "That's the magic bangle." "Well, once I wished for a worm in the palace garden to grow to the size of a snake and give the gardener a fright." "And did it?" "Yes, the only trouble was it didn't stop growing. It grew and grew till it took up the whole of the garden. Then we had to banish it to an island, but it still kept growing." "But couldn't you just wish it small again?" Mirror-Belle looked annoyed for a second, but then her face cleared and she said, "No, because I dropped the bangle in the sea and it got swallowed by a fish. Luckily, though, I caught the fish last week." Ellen thought of reminding her once again that she had said she was asleep last week. That's the giant worm. But she decided not to. It would only make Mirror-Belle cross. It was more fun just to listen to her stories, even if some of them sounded a bit like fibs. "I don't feel quite so bad about missing the dolphin display anymore," she said. "Is that all you're missing?" asked Mirror-Belle. "Well, I'm missing the sea monster display." Sea monster display. The two of them played at being dolphins and sea monsters for a while splashing a lot of water and froth out of the bath. "Your dragon pox hasn't got away yet." "Your dragon pox hasn't gone away yet," said Ellen. "Don't be so impatient," said Mirror-Belle. "We haven't done stage 2 yet." "What's that?" "Get out and I'll show you," said Mirror-Belle. They both got out of the bath and Mirror-Belle picked up a roll of toilet paper. She began winding it round and round Ellen, starting with her legs and working upwards. "I feel like an Egyptian mummy," said Ellen, laughing. Mirror-Belle reached Ellen's face. She wound the paper round and round until Ellen couldn't see out. "Now you have to count to 100, she said. "What about you?" asked Ellen. "Well, do me later." "We'll do me later," said Mirror-Belle. Ellen started to count. She could hear Mirror-Belle moving about the room, and from downstairs came the sound of Mrs. Foster Smith playing the Babbling Brook. The way she played it, it sounded more like the crashing ocean. When Ellen got to about 80, she heard Mirror-Belle say something which sounded like, "Oh, stupid old taps." When she got to 100, she tried to unwind the toilet paper, but it got into a tangle. "Help me, Mirror-Belle," she said, but there was silence. Ellen managed to tear the toilet paper away from her eyes, but Mirror-Belle was nowhere to be seen. "Mirror-Belle, where are you?" called Ellen. Mirror-Belle's pajamas had disappeared as well. Could she have put them on and gone out of the room? Ellen opened the door. Maybe Mirror-Belle has gone downstairs. Ellen was still half wrapped in toilet paper, but she didn't bother about that. She set off downstairs in search of Mirror-Belle. When she was 6 stairs from the bottom, 2 things happened. Ellen tripped up and fell down the stairs, and Mrs. Foster Smith came out of the sitting room. Ellen went crashing into her, and Mrs. Foster Smith let out a shriek. "Ellen, what are you up to?" asked Mom, following Mrs. Foster Smith out of the room. "It's stage 2. It's all to do with dragon pox," Ellen began explaining. "Mirror-Belle said that the cure for chicken pox was just the same. You need bubble bath and toothpaste and hair gel and—" The child raving. "She's delirious," said Mrs. Foster Smith. "I think we ought to call the doctor." "I don't think it's that bad," said Mom. This is when she fell down. "Go and put your pajamas back on, Ellen, and I'll be with you in a minute." "I'll see you at the same time next week then, Mrs. Foster Smith, and as I said, maybe you could try playing the pieces just a little more quietly." Back in the bathroom, Ellen finished untangling herself. She had just got into her pajamas when Mom came into the room. She looked round in horror at the empty jars and bottles and the froth everywhere. "What a horrible mess," she said. "It wasn't me. Not much of it, anyway. It was Mirror-Belle. She came out of the mirror. Oh, yes, and I suppose she's gone back into it now." Ellen looked at the mirror. It was covered in toothpastey bubbles. "I think you're right," she said. Mom wiped the bubbles off the mirror. Even Ellen looked into it. The girl she saw there did look like Mirror-Belle, but she moved whenever Ellen moved. It was just her own reflection. Ellen frowned, suddenly unsure about everything. She couldn't just have imagined Mirror-Belle, could she? Her reflection frowned back. Mom scurried around and round the room, tuttering, and clearing up the mess. The worst part was when she discovered how little of her Blue Moon perfume was left. "I know I leave you on your own a lot when I do my piano teaching, but I did think you were old enough not to do things like this," she said. "You should be in bed with those chicken pox, though I must say they do look quite a bit better. That big one on your nose seems to have disappeared." Then she caught sight of something in the basin and, looking surprised, picked it up. "Look, here's your left slipper," she said. "I'm glad it's turned up at last." Ellen didn't say anything. That would only annoy Mom again, but she smiled to herself and she put the slipper on because she knew whose slipper it really was. And that's the end of the first part. Tomorrow, I'm gonna be reading Ellen's Castle. See you tomorrow.